189 seconds, 3 minutes and 9 seconds, and it started with a printout, not a dramatic reveal, not a document held above the head. Congressman Jamie Raskin simply slid a single sheet of paper across the table toward the document camera, waited for the image to appear on every monitor in the room, and asked one question. Mr. Miller, who called you at 2:14 in the morning on March 7th? That was it. No preamble, no build-up, no 3-minute contextual framework, just a phone log and a question. And the silence that followed lasted 189 seconds because Miller understood immediately, in a way that his attorneys did not fully understand until 30 seconds later, exactly whose number was going to be on the other end of that call. When Raskin told the room what he already knew, let me set the scene completely. House Judiciary Committee, room 2441, Wednesday morning, 10:44 a.m. Eastern. The hearing had been running for an hour and 20 minutes. Document retention compliance, records management protocols, standard procedure. Miller had been composed throughout. Measured answers, correct citations. He checked his binder 3 times in the first hour. He looked like a man with nothing to hide and plenty of time. Raskin had been quiet, asking procedural questions from his seat, taking notes in the margins of a yellow legal pad. He had not raised his voice once. He had not reached for a document. He had not done anything that would signal to the 3 attorneys on Miller's left that the next question was going to be different from the previous 40. Then he slid the phone log. Mr. Miller, your personal cell phone records obtained under subpoena show an incoming call at 2:14 a.m. on March 7th. The call lasted 22 minutes and 47 seconds. You received a 22-minute phone call in the middle of the night 1 week before the document destruction that this committee has been investigating. I want to know who made that call. Miller's lead attorney reached for the document. Raskin held up a hand. It is already in evidence. It is already in the record. The question is simple. Your client received a 22-minute call at 2:14 in the morning on March 7th. Who was on the other end? He pulled out a second document. Because I did not just subpoena your phone records, Mr. Miller. I subpoenaed the carrier records, the cell tower data, the call metadata. And what that metadata shows is that the incoming call on March 7th at 2:14 a.m. originated from a device registered to a number that appears 3 other times in your phone records in the 6 weeks surrounding the document destruction. March 2nd, 11:47 p.m., March 9th, 12:31 a.m., March 14th, 3:58 a.m. He set the second document down. 4 calls, all after midnight, all from the same number, all in the 6-week window between the subpoena being served and the documents being destroyed. The March 9th call happened the same night your deputy sent the urgent disposal request. The March 14th call happened 4 days after the destruction. He looked directly at Miller. Someone with that phone number called you 4 times in 6 weeks, always after midnight, always in connection with events we have been investigating. I want to know who owns that number. Miller opened his mouth. His lead attorney's hand went to his arm immediately. Miller closed his mouth. Raskin pulled out a third document. I traced the number. The device associated with these calls is registered through a corporate account. The corporate account belongs to a consulting firm incorporated in Virginia in January of this year. The firm has 1 listed employee, 1 client relationship on file with the Virginia State Corporation Commission, and that client relationship is with a federal contractor that held 3 DHS procurement contracts in fiscal year 2025, all in the policy implementation category, all administered through the Office of Policy. He paused. Your office, Mr. Miller. He set the third document on top of the second, a Virginia consulting firm incorporated in January. 1 employee, 1 client, a DHS contractor with 3 policy implementation contracts run through your office, and a phone registered to that firm that called you 4 times after midnight in the 6 weeks around the document destruction. The March 9th call, the night the urgent disposal request was sent, lasted 34 minutes. The March 14th call, 4 days after the shredders ran, lasted 19 minutes. He looked at Miller. 34 minutes at midnight, the night your deputy sent the urgent disposal request. What were you discussing for 34 minutes in the middle of the night? Miller's second attorney was writing rapidly. His lead attorney had stopped writing entirely and was watching Miller with the specific attention of someone who is trying to assess what the witness is about to do. Miller said nothing. Raskin reached into the folder one final time. I went further. The consulting firm's one employee, the person listed as the registered agent and sole officer of this Virginia company, has a prior professional history I want this committee to understand. Before incorporating this consulting firm in January, that individual worked for 8 years at a federal agency, a specific federal agency, in a specific division. He held up the fourth document, DHS Office of Policy. That individual worked in your office, Mr. Miller, for 8 years before leaving federal employment in December of last year. 1 month later, they incorporated a consulting firm in Virginia. 2 months after that, their phone was calling you at 2 in the morning on the same nights that document destruction was being coordinated. He set the document down. A former 8-year employee of your office incorporated a firm in January, held one DHS contractor relationship, called you 4 times after midnight in 6 weeks, 34 minutes the night the disposal request went out, 19 minutes 4 days after the destruction. He pulled out his phone, opened the stopwatch, set it on the table in front of him. Mr. Miller, who called you at 2:14 in the morning on March 7th. He pressed start. 10 seconds, Miller's hands flat on the table, perfectly still. 20 seconds, his lead attorney whispering urgently. Miller staring straight ahead. 30 seconds, a Republican committee member from Georgia spoke from his seat. Jamie, a former staffer calling a current official after midnight, is not inherently criminal. What exactly are you saying the calls were about? Raskin looked at him evenly. I am saying that a former 8-year employee of Miller's office incorporated a shell consulting firm 1 month after leaving, obtained a DHS contractor relationship through that office, and called Miller 4 times after midnight in direct temporal proximity to document destruction that has already been referred to the DOJ. I am asking Miller to explain the calls. He is so far declining. 40 seconds, Miller said nothing. 60 seconds, 1 full minute. Raskin stood slowly from his seat and walked toward the center of the room. The pattern of these calls matters as much as the calls themselves. 4 calls in 6 weeks, all after midnight. The timing is not random. March 2nd was 3 days after the subpoena was served. March 7th was 1 week after. March 9th was the night the urgent disposal request was generated. March 14th was 4 days after the shredders ran. 80 seconds, someone was calling you at specific moments in the document destruction timeline. Someone with a prior professional relationship to your office. Someone whose new consulting firm held active contractor relationships administered by your office. That is not a coincidence. That is coordination. 100 seconds, Miller's jaw set tight. His hands pressed harder against the table. 120 seconds, 2 full minutes. Raskin stopped walking. Mr. Miller, I want to tell you what I think happened on those calls. I think someone who used to work for you, someone who understood your office's records infrastructure from 8 years of direct experience, was advising you on which specific documents were most dangerous to the investigation. I think March 9th was a coordination call about what the disposal request should include. And I think March 14th was a debrief on whether the destruction had been complete. 140 seconds, his lead attorney stood. Mr. Chairman, my client strongly objects to counsel's characterization of privileged communications and invokes. Raskin turned toward him. Your client has not asserted privilege. He has said nothing. Privilege must be asserted by the client, not inferred by counsel. Sit down. The attorney sat slowly. 160 seconds. Raskin walked back toward the witness table. The Virginia consulting firm that owns the phone that called you is currently under subpoena. The former staffer who incorporated it has been contacted by the FBI. Their calendar records for the 6-week window have been preserved, and the contractor payment records showing the DHS relationship administered through your office are in the congressional record as of this morning. 170 seconds. The calls are documented. The firm is documented. The former employee connection is documented. The timing against the destruction timeline is documented. I do not need you to confirm what happened on those calls. The documentation will do it. 180 seconds, 3 full minutes. What I need from you is the one thing the documentation cannot fully establish on its own: the authorization chain. Who told you to make this happen? Because a former staffer calling at midnight can advise on mechanics, but someone had to give the original order, and that person is above you. 186, 187, 188, 189. Raskin stopped the timer. He looked at it for a moment, set his phone down. 3 minutes and 9 seconds. He turned to the chairman. The witness has refused to answer. I move to refer this matter to the Department of Justice for expanded investigation, specifically to include the Virginia consulting firm, its sole employee, the DHS contractor relationship, and the full call metadata for all 4 midnight communications. I further move to enter all 4 documents into the congressional record and to request FBI interview of the former DHS staffer under oath. Both motions seconded immediately. Both passed unanimously. Miller had not spoken in 3 minutes and 9 seconds. His lead attorney was writing. His second attorney had her phone out under the table. Raskin gathered his documents, held up the original phone log one final time toward the cameras. 189 seconds, one question. Who called you at 2:14 in the morning on March 7th? A 22-minute call from a former 8-year employee of your office who incorporated a consulting firm 1 month after leaving federal employment, who called you again the night the disposal request went out, and again 4 days after the shredders ran. He set the phone log on the committee table. The FBI has the carrier records, they have the call metadata, they have the former staffer's calendar, and they are going to ask every question you decline to answer in 189 seconds. The calls are in the record, the firm is in the record, the timing is in the record. He looked directly at Miller. 189 seconds protecting a phone number that is already identified. A number that belongs to someone who worked in your office for 8 years and called you 4 times after midnight while federal documents were being destroyed. That is not a secret anymore. That is a federal investigation. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because the former DHS staffer who incorporated that Virginia consulting firm is going to be interviewed by the FBI this week. And whatever they say about those 4 midnight calls is going to answer the question Miller refused to answer for 189 seconds.